you're watching FRCD on CAN TV. Family Resource Center on Disabilities is the Region 1 Parent Training and Information Center of Illinois. You can reach us at 312-939-3513 and email us at info@frcd.org. You can also visit our website at www.frcd.org, follow us on Twitter at FRCDPTI, and subscribe to our YouTube page at FRCD1231. We also encourage you to like us on Facebook. Family Resource Center on Disabilities is not a law firm or a legal service agency. Family Resource Center on Disabilities will not provide any type of services that may be construed as practicing law, including but not limited to giving legal advice, drafting legal documents, or representing families in any type of legal proceeding. Hi, and my name is Paula Wills, and you're watching FRCD on CAN TV, where we discuss special education, parent advocacy, and resources for families of children with disabilities. And today, we are talking about one of my favorite topics, transition to adulthood. So, if you know anything about our organization, we focus on training parents to advocate for their children in the special education system. And part of that advocacy goes into adulthood, because you're going to be with your child for the rest of your life. And once they finish high school or they age out, that's it. IDEA is no longer applies to your child. So you have to start preparing as soon as possible for their next steps. So one of the things, while IDEA does have has a transition piece that starts at 14 and a half, we encourage families to look at all aspects of transitioning out of high school, not just academics, but education, housing, employment, what kind of recreational activities that is available to your child, transportation, all of these things that affect your child throughout their life. So today, we're going to be talking about a couple of resources and things that you should probably note when we're discussing transitioning out of secondary education, so transitioning out of high school. So one of the first thing that we talk about is explore options in decision making. This can be a very sensitive topic, because one of the things we talk about is delegation of rights. So that one right there is pretty much why your child is in high school. And this is for parents whose children are turning 18 while they're still in school. So this allows a parent to continue to advocate for their child at their IEP meeting. Once your child turns 18, they're considered an adult. And as an adult, they can preside over their own IEP meeting. So a form should be sent to you when they turn 17, asking them to consent that you continue to delegate, to discuss to be a part of their IEP, and to help and make decisions and be a part of that IEP team. So that is something that you certainly want to look for. Another one that we put up here is power of attorney. When we talk about decision making, we're talking about things such as guardianship, power of attorney, and delegation of rights. Delegation of rights, the student still maintains all of their rights. The only thing that the parent would have probably rule over is the IEP in school matters. When we start talking about power of attorney, again, the person with the disability still maintains most of their rights, many of their decision makings, but perhaps the parent may get involved in financial matters or medical matters. But the student or the person with a disability still has the majority of their rights. They still have to, they have to consent. So like For example, if you and your student were going to the DHS building and you may have a power of attorney over some things, the DHS is going to want to talk to your student. The college that your student may go to is going to want to talk to your student, or the days, they're not going to want to talk to you because because they're 18, they're adults, and so they don't necessarily have to disclose information to you. Just in certain matters where the student has provided, they want assistance as far as, again, financial matters, medical matters. So in that case, you're looking at power of attorney. Then you have guardianship. This is probably where the student pretty much gives up almost all of their rights. Guardianship. That's a process that parents, is not as simple as signing a piece of paper. Most likely, someone would come to your home. There would be a competency test, court hearing before a judge. It's a process, and again, the student no longer has rights. So you would probably be making the financial decisions, medical decisions, pretty much all decisions most decisions they would have to consult with you, the parent. And I have on here a website, and hopefully it will take me there. This website, for those who want more information about guardianship and advocacy, this is an excellent website to learn about the various types of rights and also the process of guardianship. So they have clearly opportunities to volunteer if you want to help with this sort of thing. But for parents, you can actually go on here and learn about guardianship, learn about the process that's involved. And this is called the Illinois Guardianship and Advocacy Commission. Let's see if it'll take me back to where I was trying to go. But this is an excellent resource. Some people, depending on what's involved, they may get an attorney. Some people go about it themselves. So you have to decide what is best for your family and the student. Another excellent resource is the Special Needs Alliance, which I'm pulling up right now. As it says here, we are a National Alliance of Attorneys for Special Needs Planning. So obviously, no, it's not obviously. It's not obvious at all, but there can be a lot involved in preparing your student and preparing your family and preparing your finances when you start talking about guardianship and when you're not here, or how is my student going to, or my child going to navigate the world. So they have attorneys that specialize in this area. So I kind of begin with that topic because that is a major concern. As you have students operating at various levels, and guardian, and we often hear sometimes at Family Resource Center, I want to learn about guardianship. I need to get guardianship. And, the thing is, I would say, is explore that, because it may not necessarily come to guardianship. It's just a term that is very familiar, but there are other options. You may not need guardianship. It may be something as simple as power of attorney, or, just kind of like learning and understanding what's involved when we talk about guardianship. I have lost my place on here. But anywho, the next thing we're going to talk about are driver's licenses and IDs. So when you're in school, I remember at least when I was in school, I didn't really think about my ID or driver's license until I got my first job, which was a summer job. You really don't think about these things until you either have to cash a check, take a plane, or something like that. So some student, if you've traveled, you may have some form of state ID. In some cases, the student may never have really needed an ID because mom or dad pretty much handled everything. My whatchamacallit mouse has completely disappeared. All right, well, I will just click on the slide if it'll allow me to. So one of the let's see. All right, it's back in business. All right, sorry, party people. All right, so again, if you're a student, I guess for whatever reason, it's just always good to get an ID. So it may seem simple, but this may not necessarily get covered while the student is in high school. But going to where you get your ID, your license, www.cyberdriveillinois.com. Because if your student plans to work. If your student plans to work, then one of the things they're going to ask for is an ID, Social Security number ID, proof of age. If your student or your child plans to travel, if they haven't already, I've yet to go to the airport where they don't ask for my ID, some kind of ID. In fact, one time I actually got a speeding ticket about a week before I was supposed to take a flight, and I had to run and go get an ID so that I could fly out that week, or otherwise I would have just been out of luck because my driver's license was my only ID. So air travel and then work opportunities. Again, as I mentioned earlier, generally if they get called in for a job, if they're selected for a job opportunity or they want to apply for a job opportunity, they're going to want to see that ID. So those are things I know at the very least at 18, that's something you want to think about doing. And then the other thing is public transit services. So for some students, may not be a big deal. They take the school bus, they're already taking CTA. But in some cases, as you get old, as a student starts to age out, there's not going to be a yellow school bus. I guess it depends on the situation. Most cases, there won't be a yellow school bus. But what you will have, if you're in Chicago, the CTA, or if you're in the surrounding suburbs, Metra and Pace, your student or child may be utilizing the paratransit system, or in some cases just learning how to use Uber or Lyft, taxi or ride share. Does your student understand how to remain safe in those situations? Do they know to look to make sure that they got into the correct Uber or the correct Lyft car? Those are some things to think about, because Uber, it's any car. On the app it tells you, okay, this is Frank Grissom, and he's driving a, I don't know, Subaru or whatever. But does your student know that they're getting in the correct car? I mean, whether disability or not, some of us, depending on the weather or what's on our minds, we just jump in a car, just assuming it's our Uber or our Lyft. Or so those are that's something to consider when you're training your child or the student for transportation. Again, do they know where they're going? Do they know, how to be safe? If you're in the car, is the Uber, what do you do if you feel the Uber driver is not going to the destination that you requested? A number of things to be aware of, and for the student to be safe, and who do they know to call the police, or how to ask for help or how to ask for directions. So, I mean, that's definitely something you will want to consider as the student is planning for graduation. Then selective services. So this is for our young men as when they turn 18, and it really doesn't matter what the disability is. You have to register for selective services. And if you go to, at least this website, it used to take me to selective services. It may have changed. Or I have to fill out a disclaimer. Well, I'm not going to go into that today, but okay, no, the information is here. So in here it talks about the process of going through selective services, completing that form, the box to check. It's really, in many cases, if you've applied for student loans, or if you're applying for SSI, that box will probably automatically get checked, or you may have to fill out whatever form or something like that. Generally, in some cases it can be automated, but that is something that I was actually shocked to learn, that no matter how severe the disability is, how the unlikeliness that a young person would be able to participate in a military outfit, they still have to sign up for selective service system. So that's something you definitely want to be aware of, or have on your mind. And in many cases, it comes up, but sometimes it falls through the cracks. But if you're applying for student loans, or if you're applying for SSI, there's several opportunities to sign up for that. Register to vote. So when you turn 18, no matter what the disability, no matter how severe the disability, your student has a right to vote. So this is something that they definitely want to take advantage of. And you can go to Illinois online voter application, and if necessary, help the young person register to vote. And they can. It sounds like right now the registration system will be closed, but tomorrow. Oh, actually, it's not closed now. It's closed in March. So if your student's 18 and they want to register to vote, this is their opportunity. But that is that is something that's something your youth can look forward to. Not everything needs to be hard and terrifying. This is an opportunity to participate in the adult world, making decisions for the future. Again, no matter the severity, once your child turns 18, they have a right to register and vote. The other thing is, it's never too early to start researching adult services. So one of the things with an IEP team, you got a table full of people, teachers, administrators, coming up with a plan so that your child can receive their free appropriate public education as they're entitled to. When they complete high school, or they turn 22, that changes. So it becomes what you're eligible for. So are you eligible for Social Security? Are you eligible for various DHS services? And it's not everyone at one table. However, some of these things you can address with the IEP team. One thing being DHS services, and preparing for if this student plans to go to school or get training in a particular trade. They can invite Department of Rehabilitation Services to discuss how that could look going forward. So you may not have it may not involve like necessarily the Social Security team, but these are some things you can look at now, and even discuss with your IEP team as they transition out. So another thing, when a student turns 18, finances. Even and disability or not, some people it never is a fun topic to discuss finances. But when your child or your student turns 18, they can start their own bank account on their own. So without having to go through you. So that is something that you may want to consider. ABLE accounts. Some of them can have their ABLE accounts if eligible. And we encourage parents to go to www.ablenow.com so that students can learn about ways that they can, if they are seeking Social Security and they need funding, they can also save for the future. One of the complaints, one of the issues, some of the red tape around and myths around students with disabilities, adults with disabilities, is that you can only make so much money. So depending on the disability, you can't, if you can only work, if you can only have limited work, it's very difficult to plan for the future, to plan to own a home, to save up as a person who may not, who doesn't have a disability. So ABLE accounts, I believe you can put up to $16,000 into an ABLE account. I'm not entirely sure, but that is something that I definitely encourage parents to look into as they plan for their students' future. Or I should take that back, as you and the student plan for the future. For some of our families with more severe to profound disabilities, and we encourage pretty much everyone to register for PUNS, prioritization of urgency of need for services. You can actually do this at www.dd.illinois.gov. This is a list. It's more of a waiting list, but people do get selected for additional services. So this is generally for people with more severe severe developmental disabilities. So I just specifically say developmental disabilities. So that is something that we would say, if you're not on the list, get on the list. If your child is 5 and they have a developmental disability, get on the list. I guess it depends. I'm not necessarily expert on the PUNS list, but I will say that some people are selected for services, and also sometimes it depends on the severity of the disability. So I'm down to my last 10 seconds. So I'm not going to go into the others, but you can always visit Family Resource Center on Disabilities, www.frcd.org, to discuss, and learn about our transition trainings on helping your student prepare for the future and have a successful transition plan. So I want to thank you for joining me this week, and you can have a wonderful, wonderful February.